My son's sick and we just live. All right, we are live today. We're live for another episode of Real Estate Junkies podcast. Today we have with us Elizabeth Riley. If you are tuning in, you will have an opportunity to gain insights from a leader who has been recognized as number one top producing agent for EXP Realty, has career that has more accolades than I can mention. If I were to take 30 minutes, it's probably not going to be enough. But she had achieved awards like Chairman's Double Diamond Award in uh, Austin's top producing, Austin Business Journal's top producer award. Elizabeth's constant hunger and growth and success has catapulted her to the pinnacle of real estate leadership, a leader in the real estate sales business. If you were to look for a trend, she is the trend, having been 8 times EXP Icon Agent and recognized as a market leader by Forbes magazine in 2020. If you miss out on this episode, you probably miss out on a lot. Elizabeth, I really appreciate you giving us your time and being here with us. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
Sure, thank you. So I usually like to do how I like to start off these podcasts is going back to what got you into real estate. Kind of like what I like doing is finding a pattern and what gets everyone into real estate. So what got you into real estate? Tell us about your journey into real estate and how that played out for you.
So mine wasn't your typical journey where I had this burning desire to be a real estate agent, right? I was living in Austin or Atlanta, Georgia at the time. My husband was there for work and we were investors. Our big goal, our big retirement strategy, whatever down the road, our goal was to be have an investment portfolio and a number of duplexes and properties and live off of that income, way down the road when we wanted to retire. And we were sitting down, and it's so funny when I look at it and I think, oh, passive income from residential rental properties. Owning rental properties is definitely not passive. It's another job in itself. But my CPA was sitting with us one day looking at the different numbers, and he said, well, one of you needs to get your real estate license. And my husband worked for corporate America, had the benefits, had the full-time job. I was marketing and doing event planning, and I was working on the Greece Olympics and some things like I was really enjoying. And so neither one of us had interest or desire for real estate. And so because I did not have the benefits, everything else, my husband looked at me and said, well, you're getting your license, and so it's got to be you. So I kind of went kicking and screaming. I wasn't really interested in real estate. I'm like, real estate, I don't want to do this. But for the IRS and for everything we had to do, I got my license in Georgia. And I was very, very passive. I would just tell, my girlfriends or our couples groups or, hey, I have my license if you ever need anything. I mean, it was very, very casual. And I remember one of my girlfriends from college said, well, I want to buy a condo. Help me buy a condo. I was like, okay, let's go buy a condo. And my second deal was another friend of mine that worked at Dell Computer at the time. And I was like, oh, this will be fun. So I'd never approached it like a job. It was more of a hobby, and I could help my friends and realize, oh, this is actually a lot of fun. So that was how I got started in real estate in Atlanta, Georgia, and built my business there just by working with people I know. My sponsor at the time at the company I was with had some online leads, and that's 2004, 2005, before online leads was really a thing. And so it just was very casual, very passive in my approach. And so I built my business up there, became a top producer in my market. And in 2008, my husband was transferred to Austin, Texas. And for those that have been in the business a long time and they remember 2008, when everything crashed and the markets were horrible, when I met people in Austin, because I didn't know anybody, we had one child at the time, and I had to meet somebody and meet people and get to know my neighbors. Everybody I came across said I was crazy for wanting to get my real estate license in Texas. They're like, what are you doing? Have you not been reading the news? Have you not been paying attention to what the economic crisis is right now? And for me, I saw it as opportunity because I came from a bad market, right? I came from Atlanta, Georgia, where the bubble really burst and it was horrible. We were doing short sales and foreclosures. And so, I looked at it as, well, Austin's a better market. I need to meet people. People are buying and selling. So that's okay. While people are getting out of the business, I'm getting in the business. And so it opened up doors that I don't know if they would have been open prior. And so I became a top producer there in 2014. My office had 650 agents, and I was the number one agent that year. And I remember being surprised by that because I didn't really follow my numbers or know where my business was coming from. And being a top producer, I came home that day and my husband's like, "Oh my gosh, let's go celebrate." And I said, "Nope, I'm getting out of the business," because I was on a hamster wheel. I just was like, I can't do this again. It was my family suffered because all I was doing was focusing on my business. And so I had to make a change. And so in 2015, May of 2015, I made a change from the brokerage I was super loyal to for 10 years. I made a change and I came over to a company nobody had heard of at the time with 400 agents called eXp Realty. And I've been
Wow.
at eXp since May of 2015, and that's where I am today. And I've built my business 100% referral, and I love
Just
what
so
I
I have
do.
to make you hold on. You said 400 agents?
Yes, I'm agent 466 at eXp.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And we have
Why?
almost
Why
90,000
would you
now.
do that? What was it?
You know, I was bored and uninspired and where I was. And it was just every company was the same. And I wanted to get back to the basics. And I just, like I told Glenn Sanford when I first met with him that time, people join people. And I really loved what Glenn's vision was. And
Mhm.
Glenn used to be a real estate agent. He understood what it was like to be an agent and trying to build and trying to have balance, if there is such a thing. And I wanted to be able to work with my Georgia friends again. I couldn't really do
Uh,
that in Texas and Georgia, but with this model I could. And so
mm,
it was really exciting for me to get back into collaboration with them. And then I started just meeting people that I would have never met otherwise in this company. And so I
mm.
started with people in Virginia and learning from like Doug and Chuck in Beverly Hills doing luxury, which was so different than what I was doing here in Austin. And it opened my eyes to something different and exciting. And again, we only had 400 agents at the time. My office had 650, so it wasn't EXP wasn't what it is now,
Yeah, it's
but
crazy.
it was
I would
fun to
never make that move.
build.
What? Like
Yeah.
you got some risk in you. Like you took some huge risk at the time.
People say that. I think the risk for me was actually staying where I was,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
You
that's
don't
true.
grow if you're complacent and if you're comfortable,
Honestly, like
right?
it's not that big of a risk. Come on, like what is it? You change your license and it didn't work out, you change it back, right?
Correct, right? I mean, I could always go back. Everybody wants a top producer. So for me, the risk was more staying where I was and not growing and being stagnant. So, I mean, I have the gift of hindsight, obviously. I can look back 8 years and go, holy cow, look at what we've all done together. And no matter what other company I was at, I wouldn't be able to build and own something because I was building somebody else's dream, not something that I owned. And here I'm part owner and we all are part
Wow.
owner. And when you own something, you treat it differently. And so it's every single day is fun for me. And, 8 years has flown by and I wouldn't miss a beat.
So you've been in EXP as long as I've been in real estate.
Ah,
so,
there you
so
go. There
I
you
got
go.
licensed August of 2014 is when I got licensed. Honestly, didn't see success until 2016. But that's amazing. But I don't want to skip over a lot of details you just went over. So I want to go back and ask you a few questions. So you got into real estate, wasn't planning to do real estate sales, got in to save money in taxes, from what I understood.
Yeah.
If I read between the lines. But from there on to becoming a top producing agent in your office, what was it that got you in? Was it the money that you started seeing success, deal after deal? Like what kept you going until you decided, you know what, this is not what I signed up for?
Yeah, it's interesting because everybody has situations at home, and my husband and I had, when we got married, had always planned on me being a stay-at-home mom, right? I
Hmm.
mean, when we got married, we decided, well, whatever we do, we're going to live under one salary because we just never know. And we were very conservative about that. And what I realized quickly is I'm not a very good stay-at-home mom. I have 4 children. I adore my children, but I'm a better mom because I work, right? And it gave me challenge and balance. And so it wasn't really the income. It still to this day is not the income that drives me. I mean, I'm in a situation now, and we can talk about this later, where it's not about the income anymore because now it's about making an impact. And for me,
Hmm.
that's so, so important. But at the time, and what kept me going was just really serving people and
Hmm.
helping people and being a solution. I love being solution focused. And seeing their houses when they see, I mean, seeing their faces when they find their home. And I got to be a part of their story. That's what I loved. And that's
Yeah.
what I still love to this day.
So, okay, that's what every real estate agent says, like why they got into real estate and why they love real estate is helping people. That's one level, but being top
Yeah.
producing agent, number one agent in your office, that's a whole different level of loving helping others, right? And
Yeah.
so, and you said 2014 came, you time to celebrate that you came number one, but you're like, you know what, I'm getting out of business. But honestly, 8 times icon agent doesn't sound like getting out of business, right? So, what was your
No,
thought
no.
process?
I know. Yeah. And I was going to get out of the business because just the old model that I was at just wasn't fun anymore.
Uh-huh.
But at EXP, I was having a good time. And in fact, so the first full year at EXP, we had 2,000 agents and we were at the awards ceremony. And again, my business is 100% referral. If I treat each of my clients like they're my one and only client, they're going to refer me to everyone. That's why my
Mhm.
business has
Yeah.
grown.
Yeah.
So the first full year at EXP, we had 2,000 agents. And we're at the awards ceremony. And I still remember to this day, you know, they're talking about the teams and the top producers. And they say and our number one individual agent, 2,000 agents, our number one individual agent is Elizabeth Riley. And I remember sitting at the table, I'm clapping and we're all excited. And my friend taps me on the shoulder and she's like, they just called your name. And I'm like, what? How is that possible? And then the second year, I mean, it was really funny. Glenn even laughed at me when I was up on stage accepting my award. I asked Glenn Sanford, are you sure you got those numbers right? He's like, yeah. He goes, see, this is why you should know your numbers. I was like, this is so much more fun not. And then the second year I was at EXP, we had 5,000 agents and I was number one nationally again. So
Amazing.
how did I go from a model where I was number one out of 650 agents to now my business is completely different? Well, I
Yeah.
was dying on a vine at my old model. It wasn't fun. It wasn't innovative. It was just one transaction after another. It was you're fired after every transaction. It's go get the next deal. And that just didn't inspire me. And I changed nothing about who I was or how I did my business. I changed my environment. And so where in my old company I was the big fish, I was now no longer the big fish. And when you're not the big fish anymore, then you have more room to grow and expand. And that's what was happening for me. And I was having fun doing it. And so I was the first icon at EXP ever named. And that's
Wow.
why I came to the company because Glenn told me about the icon program
You
and the
are the
stock.
unicorn, and I'm so glad I got you. You're probably as high as I could get on the upline, right? That is still
I
producing and still in
Well,
the space.
maybe. I don't know. We're all in this together, and that's what's so fun, right? And so I just was like, well, what can I do here? And how can we make an impact and how can I keep growing? And so when Glenn would talk to me about coming to EXP and what his vision was, you know, one of the things he talked about was the stock. And I didn't really understand the stock because real estate agents, I mean, we're just doing transactions. You don't really understand ownership in that way, right?
Mhm.
And he gave me a book, the 2014 Trends Report from Stefan Swanepoel. And I know who Stefan Swanepoel is, right? He's the real estate royalty in my book, trends expert, broker blind. And he wrote an article in that book that year talking about Remax, Keller Williams, all these different models, nothing good or bad, just talking about the differences. And there was an article or paragraph he said, but the one to watch that you don't know about is called EXP Realty. It's the Amazon.com of real estate.
Mm.
And all of a sudden I was like, what if, right? What if I had known about Amazon or really understood Amazon when they were trying to sell books online? I think all of us would have bought stock or done anything we could have to be a part of that. Right. And
Yeah.
so the one side of me is like, well, what if this company does anything like that? I don't even understand what he's talking about or his vision, but he obviously has a bigger vision than me. And then the other side of me is like, well, what if that doesn't happen? Well, what if it doesn't happen? If it does happen, how amazing will that be? And how much fun will that be? And if it doesn't happen, I can go back to any other brokerage or model. They all need top producers. And so why not? And it proved to be a really good play. And so the stock tied to the Icon Award, the top producer award, was really important to me because at my old company, I got a baseball cap every single year that said capper. Thank you for the cap, but that's not going to pay my mortgage. That's not going to put my kids through school. And so for just doing transactions that I'm doing, you're going to give me stock in a publicly traded company. Okay. And when I joined the company, the stock was trading around 60 cents. So
Wow.
it was, people think it's a risk. For me, it wasn't a risk. For me, it was an opportunity.
That is an amazing, amazing story and journey. Revenue share. What about revenue share? Did you like? Were you? I'm sure you knew profit share, and
Right.
yeah. So like, what is that like for you now through this 8 9 years? Like, how is that impacting your decision to stay?
Oh, that's changed my life. And when I first met with Glenn, I told him I was not interested in rev share. I flat out told him that. Now, since then he laughs. He's like, I think you've changed your mind. Yes, I've changed my mind. But at the time I was at Keller Williams, loved that company. I was there for 10 years and people followed me. Right. I didn't recruit people. I didn't ask them to join me. I didn't do any of that stuff. They just followed me because of who I was, or we had a relationship or a friendship, or whatever the reason was. And so I did pretty well at KW. I was one of the top in the region for attraction, and I know what that dollar amount looked like.
No.
It wasn't much more than my cap, so it really just wiped out my cap, which was nice. And so what I told Glenn was, though, I had created another job because all these agents would follow me, and my office at the time didn't have the resources or the staff or the infrastructure to support all these different people. So
Mm.
we had 9 staff trying to support 650 people. The numbers don't work. And so I'm kind of a little mother hen, and I would make sure, and I don't want anybody to fail. And so I created another job for me that was burning me out. And so I told Glenn, I'm not interested in rev share. I don't want to go down that road again. He's like, okay, I'm here for the stock. And everybody's why is different. But what's happened is, again, people followed me. Nobody, especially back then, none of us had any idea what we were doing. And so it was a lot of trust and a lot of faith.
Mm.
But I went to seek wise counsel with somebody that I trusted and I knew would give me, the tell me yes or no, or I'm crazy, or do this. And he had retired and he was my old team leader. And we evaluated it for 5 months because I'll take a risk for me, but I didn't want to put anybody else's job or license or livelihood in jeopardy. I
Wow.
just couldn't have that on my conscience. And so I didn't want people following me, but we had about, 10, 15 that were going to come along with me until I talked to him. I was like, let's figure this out. And then he finally said, you know what, I'm going to come out of retirement and do this with you. And that was Gene Frederick. And so I brought Gene Frederick to the company. And what was fun is we decided to all build together. And so in the early days, we're having, such an amazing time, and our energy and our relationships and our synergies were so great that we helped build this. And now it's obviously almost 90,000 agents. And to look back, it's crazy. So our revenue share numbers are unbelievable. But I focused on the people that were close to me and the people that were coming. And if I could love on my people that were following me and trusting in me, and if I taught them how to be productive and to plug them in and love on the people that they bring, then it cascades out and everybody wins. So I brought 70, 72 people to the company over the last 8 years on my front line, but that's cascaded out to 11,000 something.
11,000.
Yeah. So it just grows. And when you treat people like they want to be treated and you make them feel important and empowered, and everybody's winning together, it's a winning combination. And that's why EXP is home. And I am so passionate about this company and so incredibly grateful for Glenn's vision and his humbleness and his generosity. He came up with a brilliant model where everybody wins. And so now it allows me to pay it forward and create an impact. And like I said, instead of income. And so what have I been able to do with that? Well, I mean, my 4 kids, we've created a legacy for them. My husband was at corporate America for 25 years, but he didn't have a relationship with my kids because he traveled internationally all the time. So I was able to retire my husband 2 years ago.
Wow.
And so my husband's now home. His relationship with our kids is airtight. And yes, we could do that because of revenue share, but really it was the healthcare that made us look at it. And our healthcare was better than what he was getting in corporate America. So I was like, well, this is a no-brainer. And, so that's been amazing. I've been able to pay off my parents' home. My parents are almost in their 80s, and now they work because they want to, not because they have to, right? There's so many different things, and community and charity. It just depends on what's important to you. But this company allows us to make a difference in whatever makes sense to us individually.
It's crazy that now you can look at this model and you can see that, okay, this makes sense. But when you made the decision, it didn't make sense. I mean, honestly, it didn't. I mean, there were 400 people in there. Even if you were to combine everyone's revenue shares, probably doesn't match up to what you get today, right? Like you by yourself, right?
Yeah. And again, I just wanted to get back to the basics and fall back in love with real estate because I was burned out.
Yeah.
And I
So
didn't care. I didn't care if there were 1,000 people or 10,000. It didn't matter. I just needed to change rooms. And I always tell people, if you're not in the right rooms or you're not growing, then you need to change rooms. And so
mm,
I changed the room and I changed the people I was surrounded by. And now it was all about collaboration, not competition. And it worked.
and we could see you've been busy, right? 8 years in the company, 8 times icon, right?
Yeah.
So where do you see yourself going from here?
I question a lot, and I don't know. I just take one day at a time. I kind of joke saying I take 1 hour at a time, but the transactions are fun. They don't drive me as much as they used to. I have a self-organized team within EXP. We have the Lux Property Group, so that's our production team, and so it's been great because that's what they want to do, and so I'm still able to stay in the transactions and still stay in the industry, but with my team, it allows me to step out and follow other paths that I necessarily wouldn't have thought of before. So I speak around the country a lot, whether it's on production, whether it's on leadership. I'm super passionate about women empowerment, and lifting others as we climb. And so that's been really fun and something that I never really expected or thought that I
Yeah.
would have added any
Time
value.
for.
But yeah. And so I've been really doing that a lot. And I just really love supporting people. So traveling around the XP, I'm involved in success coaching. I'm not a coach, but I'm ambassador, helping with the luxury as an ambassador and just doing different things that it's freed my time up for.
Mm,
But really, and spending time with my family and doing really fun things for that. So I'm stepping back from the transaction piece a little bit. That's not to say we're not doing a lot of
yeah.
transactions.
Yeah.
Um, I do quite a bit of transactions, but I'm getting to dabble in other areas and just kind of
Trying to
dip my
see
toe in a
where
little
do
bit
you
to see
find
and
passion in?
fail forward, right? It's
Yeah.
all about failing forward and trying different things and seeing what's exciting and what makes me a better leader and a better communicator and a better person.
Amazing. 11,000 agents, right? Obviously, it's you have about 100 people in your front line, right? That they're directly connected to you. What are you doing for? I mean, I don't know. It's just like if someone were to choose you as your sponsor, like how are you helping agents right now in the
Yeah.
organization?
So we within the company have created a group called Family Tree. There's four of us that are different leaders, different organizations. We don't cross at all. And we decided we're like, you know what? There's so much value and your line doesn't matter. Right. We hear that so many times. Well, who you join matters. And no, it doesn't. We're all one family. If one person wins at EXP, we all win because we're all owners. And again, your mindset shifts when you understand that. So we have Family Tree, and so we're in there every single day. We're coaching, training, whether it's on production or teams or revenue share or whatever it is. We've got top people in there teaching and just sharing what they're doing in the different markets, and we're learning from each other, and that's what's making us better agents in our own markets. So on a daily basis, we're doing that. I have huddles for my organization all the time. I'm doing events all the time. I love that. I love bringing people together. I do gratitude lunches quarterly just because I just love people loving my people.
Yeah.
I treat everybody just like my clients. I'm available whenever they need me. Let's walk through this. Let's talk through this. Can you go on a listing with me? Can I shadow you? Yes, absolutely. And I have a number of my people across the country, but they feel really, really connected because we've created a family unit. So they don't feel like they're on an island. So I think I'm very intentional with my group. I'm definitely not one that steps back and is passive. That's just not my personality.
Yeah.
And I'm celebrating their successes and they're having a lot of fun doing it. And I'm seeing, their families change and their communities change just because of the effort that they're doing. And I get to be a part of their story.
Amazing. And this much passion, honestly, if I was in your shoes, I don't see myself, retiring husband, paying off parents, houses, getting them of course they're retired if their house is paid off and they're just getting to do whatever they want to, and now you can do whatever you want to and you're still
Yes.
going, and it's an amazing passion that you have. Now, where do you see, like, with you being in production for that long, uh closing in on what, 18 years, 16 years?
18 years. Yeah.
Where do and you've been through the market, you actually changed market when the market went down, right? You went from one market to another market. And you said, okay, to me it was more opportunities. I'm sure you're seeing the same thing, if not more now. Where do you see this market going as far as the real estate industry goes?
There's a lot of fear, I think, in this market, and I have to really step back and understand why. And a number of agents that, especially in my circle, they've only been in the business a few years. Some of them got in the business when COVID happened, and some of them, it just depends on where they are. And for me, and a lot of us that have been in the business a long time, markets are always going to go up and down. The real
Yeah.
estate market is just like this. And I think if you just figure out who you are, who you want to be as a real estate professional, what's authentic to you, and you're secure in that, and you're consistent, you're going to weather any market. I
Mm.
don't care what the market does, because I know who I am as an agent. I know that I'm going to serve my clients. I know what works for me. I'm not going to go knock on doors or cold call. That doesn't work for me. But I know how to stay in relationship. And if you build the relationships, the business is going to come. So I don't care what the market is doing. I'm going to be successful because I'm consistent. I know who I am, and I'm going to continue forth. I'm not going to put my head up and look around. And there's a lot of fear, and people have their head in the sand, or they're getting out of the business because it gets hard. It's like, no, it's not that it's hard. This is, again, opportunity to pivot. What's
Yeah.
working for you? What's not? Let's pour into each other. Let's do more masterminds. Let's talk to, some people in Louisiana. What are they doing down there? And what
Mm.
what are the people in Florida doing? And how can you be a little bit more unique in your approach? And how can you love on your clients and your sphere a little bit more? Because the reality is, no matter what the market is, people are always going to have to buy and sell. They're
Mm.
always going to have to move here. I'm in Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
Everybody, I think, even though it's probably 120 degrees today, it's so hot here right now, but everybody's moving to Austin for a number of reasons.
Yeah, I
There's a
want to
ton
move
of,
there. Actually, we have a plan to move to either Dallas or Austin
well, I'm going to say
by
Austin.
2030. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Where are you? What market are you in?
Michigan.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I've
Yeah.
never been to Michigan, but it seems like it's a lot cooler than it is here right now. But
Oh, yeah.
but again, everybody's moving here, whether it's corporate taxes, whether it's, Tesla's here, Oracle or Dell, or whatever the reason is. University of Texas here. I just got a referral today from a past client of mine who's a professor there, and she said, "Oh, we have another professor moving here from out of the country, and you're our go-to. Can you help him?" Absolutely.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to move regardless of what the market is. Just because the
Mhm.
market shifts doesn't mean like I mean, even COVID, people
Yeah.
were moving at COVID because they wanted to have more land, or they wanted to
Yeah.
have more, location freedom. So I think you just have to kind of step back and not let fear run your world, and align with other people that are doing things a little bit different, and you can be successful no matter what. So I'm not worried about the market. I never worry about the market.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it all comes down to someone's commitment to the real estate, right? Altogether. And that's when you can really get rid of that fear. If you're like committed to this, like this is all I know how to do and this is all I'm going to do, no matter how the market is go up or down. It's like a roller coaster ride. You're already tucked in and you're on the belt is you're locked in. Even if the
Right.
roller coaster goes down, you're bracing to get back up, right? You're just like getting ready. Okay, it's gonna go back up, right?
Exactly. Well, and I think too, I mean, the barrier to entry with real estate is so low. I mean, I think Texas is one of the hardest ones just from a time commitment, but it's really not hard to
What do you guys
get your
do? 90
license.
hours or something?
It was like
120 hours?
270 or something like that. Yeah, it's a lot. And when I moved from
Wow.
Georgia to Texas, they don't have reciprocity, so I had to go do all that again. But it's still not a lot compared to other industries. And so I think what
Professionals,
happens
yeah.
is people are like, well, this didn't work for me. This didn't work for me. So I'm going to be a real estate agent, and I'm going to and they're watching all these movies and these shows and Million Dollar Agent and whatever they're called. I don't even watch any of those shows, but
Sunset,
they're
selling sunset.
right. They're making it look so glamorous. And this is, I mean, it's not. And you're working with people's emotions, and you're working with people's biggest assets for the
Mhm.
most part. And you got to take that seriously. And so I think a lot of people just think it's going to be easy, and they don't really truly have that commitment, and they enter it with the wrong expectations.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if they don't adjust those, and if they don't make it, really a priority, then they're not gonna make it in this industry or make it in the
Yeah.
business, which then opens the door, and it's more market share and opportunity for all of us that really are
That are
running it as
committed.
a
Yeah.
business.
Yeah, for sure. And I've seen this already. 3 years coaching and training agents is that majority of them fail because they don't set the right expectation, and barrier of entry being so low, they don't know any better, right? So it's
Right.
not really their fault. So I could see you just hit the nail on the coffin with that one. That hey, set the right expectation. Market, it doesn't matter. It's about your commitment, what you're committing to, and if you have the right expectation. Now, if coming from you, I usually ask these questions with people that have been in EXP for a while and have seen a lot of success. But coming from you is going to be different. This answer, right? So definitely want to
Okay.
ask you this question. What would you advise to agents that are out there in different brokerages? Let's not even name which brokerages, right? To me, all franchise models are pretty much same. They just tweak each other's number, right, to compete
Right.
with each other. What would you say to top agents out there who are in the hamster wheel that you were in 2014, right? And now that you know the other side, what would be what would be your advice to them, or what would you say to those agents who are on the fence, afraid of taking a risk? I mean, after hearing about you, that risk is really like minimal. But what would be your suggestion to agents that are probably considering EXP? Or, they have a lot to lose. Maybe they're thinking, right? I'm a top producer. I'm doing 20 million a year. Why would I leave that, even though they're not really leaving anything behind? What would you say to them?
I ask a lot of questions and I meet with people individually because what's important to them is going to be different from person to person. And I ask them, I want to get to the root of the problem and figure out what the pebble in their shoe is. What is their fear? I'll give you an example. I met with an $11 million producer today, and she and I built a relationship, and I just adore her, and she's amazing. And she's only been in the business 3 years.
Wow.
So $11 million is a pretty good thing. And what I really understood from her was, I mean, what was the fear? The fear was, well, what if I'm not going to be successful? And then I had to kind of step back. Well, what have you done to be successful to do $11 million? Because there's a lot of people that would love to be in your shoes, and you're comparing yourself to me. Don't compare yourself to me. Comparison kills joy, right? And so what we found out is it was the numbers, and she didn't understand the numbers. And so I said, well, are you open to looking at the numbers side by side? Let's pull up a spreadsheet. So while we're sitting in the coffee shop today, we pull up a spreadsheet, brand new Excel spreadsheet. And I was like, okay, let's just put your numbers next to mine. Not mine, your company next to EXP with your numbers from last year. So we did the $11 million. And after the expenses, she's like, oh, we don't have monthly fees. We don't have all these things. I was like, okay, great. But let's just put the numbers here. And with the splits and everything else there, she made $150,000 take home last year. And in that same model and in that same production and comparing it to our model, she would have made $308,000.
Wow.
And when she saw those numbers, she's a single mom, has 2 girls. When
she probably asked, is this real?
I mean, it was crazy. And I was like,
show me your pay stub and I quit my job right now. You know that movie?
Yeah, exactly. But I said, we're looking at the numbers right here. And she couldn't believe it. Now, and all this time, there was a lot of fear. She thought she had all this stuff to lose. I said, so where's your risk?
No.
I said, what you're doing is you're being more loyal to your broker than you are to your family. And I said, let's talk about stock. I said, we haven't even talked about stock or anything else. We're just looking clearly at numbers, just commission numbers. And that wasn't even any of it. And she would have, by her number, she would have icon. I was like, look, and then this is all the stock. And I said, you've always heard this saying, you either build your dream or somebody's going to hire you to build theirs. I said, they've hired you to build their dream. So for her, it was just the numbers, and that was her fear. And she thought, oh my gosh, if I do this, I've got all this stuff to risk. And I'm like, you don't have anything to risk. I said, you're stuck where you are, and somebody else is living a really good life because of your efforts. So I think when people are on the fence, they truly don't understand what we're about. They think they know what we're about, but they don't. And so unless they're ready to really sit down and say, okay, well, what is it? And let's look at the numbers, or what is it that you're concerned about? Let's really dive into that and be vulnerable. Then they just think, and until you're in our ecosystem and really truly understand what we're about, they're missing out. And the reality is they're going to come, whether it's now or later, they're going to come over here at some point. And I think this market's actually been really good for that, because a lot of top producers are realizing, well, what's my brokerage really providing?
Because when things get hard, now they have to go out there and get it themselves, and now realizing, hey, the sweat equity doesn't make a difference. It's still on me, right?
Exactly. And when the last couple of years when the market was crazy, everybody's like, I'm so busy, I can't think about anything. I'm like, okay, well, it's always going to be some excuse.
Yeah.
And it's changing other people's lives. I had an agent that paid his brokerage $210,000 last year. And I said, what would you have done with that money? He goes, I would have bought an investment property. And I said, well, would you be open to looking at the numbers? Because he started asking me all these questions, and we were in a public setting. And I said, we're here for something else, but why don't you and I sit down in a quiet coffee shop and I'll show you the numbers. And when he looked at the numbers, he's like, that's unbelievable. And he researched us on his own for a couple of months. But here's what I'll tell you. He paid his brokerage $210,000 last year. He never capped because they don't have caps.
Wow.
He came over to EXP in November, capped by December. All of a sudden, he's 100%. He's overjoyed. He iconed by April,
That's
and now
great.
he's looking at the stock, going, "Wait a minute." And he can't stop talking about it. And people are recognizing from his demeanor and how excited he is and what his production's doing. He's like, oh my gosh, now he's 100%. He's got all this income coming in, and he has more resources and more support and more collaboration than he ever did before. So it just depends on what's important to them. But it really comes down to the numbers. And like today, she couldn't sit there and say, oh, my brokerage is, $158,000 more important to me because I left that on the table by not being in a different model. So
Yeah.
we're not a fit for everybody, and that's okay. And not everybody's a fit for us. I think you just have to explore the models. But if you're truly looking, you have to be open-minded and really understand each model before you make a decision, not just
Yeah.
assume you know everything about what we're doing.
Yeah, it's like truth. Like you come to the truth with a preconceived notion that, doubt truth is gonna miss you, right? So it to me it's like that's what it was for me, right? Like I actually avoided it in purpose for 3 years before I'm like, you know what, I can't avoid it anymore. Um, I do have to ask you because you mentioned the words. So I have to ask you this question. I usually ask this hard question. To me, it's like not everyone can answer this one, but with your experience going from 466 agent to 90,000 agents, I think you could answer this one. And this will be our last one, and we can end after this one. Okay.
You're
So
good.
you have seen agents leave EXP, right?
Yes.
And we are in a public forum, and I'm really open about that. I see agents leave EXP all the time, and I asked them, what's the reason for you why did you come and why did you leave? Right? Like I usually I have these like 3 question script that I already have determined. Every time I see an agent leave, I'm in their inbox asking them those 3 specific questions if they have a conversation with me. But why do you think, why would you say agents don't become successful? So I'm kind of like paraphrasing it a little bit differently.
Yeah.
That why they leave is whatever they have come up with the conclusion, right? But from our perspective, why would you say an agent doesn't become successful in a model like EXP, right?
Yeah.
That is the same model you came into, right? You didn't have
Right.
any special like supporting you, right? You built yourself up. Where do you see that agents fall short when it comes to becoming successful in EXP? And I think the answer will be all across the board, but let's just skip it to EXP.
Yeah. I think, that's a great question. And our company is very entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of us that are visionaries and we have big ideas and big plans, but all sorts of people and personalities come to this company. And I think really the biggest is because I ask agents that as well. And I'll have, if agents have left and I can plug them in and get reacquainted with them or help them in some way, a lot of times they come back.
Hmm.
It's when they don't plug in and they don't show up, and they people can't want success more for you than you want it for yourself.
Hmm.
Right. And so it's a lot of work, and some people don't want to put in the effort, or they don't really have the direction or know how to do what they need to be doing to be successful. Or they're like, okay, this is where I want to be, but what's the how do I get there?
Yeah.
And a lot of times people give up and they get discouraged, and they give up too soon. Like it's farming, right? If you think about farming, you've got to farm an area for years before you see the fruits of your labor. And I'm not saying you have to do that in real estate, but so many people give up too early with farming, and they've already put all this effort in, or if they would have just tried something else, or if they would have just asked some other questions, or done something a little bit different, they would have been wildly successful. And so a lot of times I think it's just when people aren't showing up and they're not plugging in and they feel lost.
Hmm.
And if you feel like you're on an island and you don't really understand the resources and you don't grasp everything we have to offer, then I can see why people leave. We're not the most expensive model by any means. We're not the cheapest, and you get what you pay for, but we have a whole lot under the belt.
Yeah.
So I think some people that leave, they're like, oh, well, I want to go to this kind of model because I don't have to 100% model or what have you. I'm like, well, 100%, what do you get for that? You're not getting anything. What resources and training?
100%
You're
of
looking at
what you're not paying for.
correct. And they don't really look at it that way. And so I think that's another reason why we created Family Tree. So
Mm.
nobody felt like they were on their island.
Wow.
EXP Family Tree is open to everybody in the company. We don't care who your sponsor is. We don't care how long you've been in the business. We don't care if, you don't have any support in your organization or your market or whatever. You are all family to us. And so that was really the reason why we brought EXP Family Tree together, to help with support, but retention as well. And
Yeah.
our agents are all thriving. There's almost 10,000 agents organically in that group, just one
Yeah.
subgroup. So I think people have to be invested in their success as well. And they can't
Yeah.
just expect everybody else to make them successful. And
Mm.
some people leave for the wrong reasons. Some people leave for the right reasons. And like I said, we're not a fit for everybody, but
Yeah.
I think we're a fit for most if they truly understand what we're here to offer and that we really, truly want to invest in their success.
So if you were to put it in a category for people, like, hey, if this is you, EXP is not for you, is there such thing? I already know the answer to it, but
I don't think so. Like, because I
you
know
don't
so
think
many
so?
different
Exactly,
people.
right? This
Yeah. I
model
mean,
could fit anyone and everyone. That's what I
yes,
was.
I think so. And I mean, there's, and I'm really big on the disc profile. And regardless of what your personality is, success is different for each of us,
Yeah.
right? And I don't care if you want to sell one house a year or one house a month or one house a week. Like, we have the resources and systems to help you do that. And I think if you're in real estate and you want to support, I mean, we're being we're just a platform to help you be wildly successful, whether
Mhm.
it's in your market or it's global. Look at what we're doing, and we're just getting started. That's what's so exciting for me. So I think, yeah, there's a place for everybody here. And obviously I would want everybody here, so we're all celebrating success together, and plug them in and have them, figure out what their path is, because we all do business differently, and there's not one way to do business. So I
Yeah.
think when people understand that, I think it's a great place for, most everybody.
Thank you, Elizabeth, Queen Elizabeth, Queen of Real Estate. At least at EXP here, right? We have already nominated and selected you as our queen. I would ask this because I ask this to everyone who comes on my podcast. Do you consider yourself a real estate junkie?
Absolutely. I'm a real estate junkie. I'm an EXP junkie, and I'm proud about it.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Looking forward to meet with you in person in one of these events coming up. Hopefully we get connected, but it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it, and looking to collaborate with you more in the future.
Anytime, I'm always here to serve, and thank you for having me as your guest.
Thank you.